I'll just do a. All right. Good evening, everyone, and thanks a million for coming. Yes, we're up to 52, so we know that people will be coming in as we speak. This is a very important meeting, and so I'm thankful. I want to thank all the lecturers who have given up the time. The 6 to 9 o'clock time is our normal operating hours. And so this evening, Sophia Morgan has given up her time and Patrick Sterling has given up his time so that the HRD students could be here. And I'm not sure about the situation in the psychology and the social work programs, in the sociology program, but I know that lecturers have given up their time because they feel that this is something important. And as we know, if people will be watching this in years to come, they may not know, but in the past few days, we've had Hurricane Melissa come through and devastate large sections of Jamaica. But the thing is that even if we didn't have problems in Kingston, we've been affected by the hurricane because we have relatives who've been affected in the parishes in the West. And so we're all sharing in a collective anxiety. Some of us still don't have regular supplies of water or internet or electricity. So the usual comforts that we've come to expect are not with us. And at the same time, we feel we shouldn't be complaining because we know that other people are worse off. But we're manifesting in terms of a collective anxiety, in terms of sleeplessness, in terms of sadness, in terms of all sorts of negative emotions. And we're having people who are beginning to be snappish, I'm upset with, more easily offended, that sort of thing. So today's talk, and we welcome Dr. Rosemarie Johnson. She is a clinical psychologist, the former unit coordinator for the psychology unit in our department. And she is here. She's going to give us this opportunity to breathe, to just pause, and we can learn how we can help ourselves through this period and how we can help our constituents. So for the HRD students, it would be helping not only their families and their communities, but their organizations as well. We believe that HR will be among the first responders. If people in the organization become less productive, the organization is going to want HR to motivate them and engage them and all the rest of it. So the students are there to help. It's very clear what the psychology students can do and what the social workers will do for their communities and their organizations, their groups, and their individual clans. Now, the goal here, of course, is not for us to become counselors or for us to become psychologists, nothing like that. But what we want to do is to understand what post-hurricane stress can look like. And we want to know if there is any way that we can respectfully intervene and perhaps then refer people who are beyond our capacity to trained professionals. But we would at least have to know what it looks like and take the first steps, the first Band-Aid steps. So as I said, we're blessed to have Dr. Rose Johnson with us. She's a clinical psychologist. She will guide us through understanding our responses, understanding the responses of others, and give us some tips in how we can begin the rebuilding process, the healing process, not just in our homes, but in all our spheres of influence. So please help me to welcome Dr. Rose Johnson back to the HRD unit. She is one of us, even though, of course, she really was seen to be with the psychology unit. Welcome, Doc, and thanks a million.
You're welcome, Ollie, and good evening, everyone. Thanks, Ollie, for staying on screen so that I don't feel like I'm just talking to the computer. So I'm gonna be going back and forth between sharing my screen and coming off screen and talking to you guys. And as I thought about what I could say to the audience that I have, so in the different roles, I know we have different disciplines here, but in each discipline, the nature of our professional responsibility puts us in the role of leaders. And so regardless of what the situation is, externally, how we show up professionally will always be in the role of leader. And so that's one through line that I want each of you to think about as we talk together this evening. I also want to say that it's important to remember that whatever it is that you're feeling about this Melissa, or the aftermath of Melissa, it's normal. It's what you are supposed to feel. And so each of us, we're going to have a different reaction. And we're supposed to, because we're all unique in terms of lots of different things. How we make meaning of our experiences is different, and consequently, our reactions are going to be unique and are going to be different. And so as you navigate your leadership roles, whether you're HR, whether you're a psychologist, whether you're a social worker, whether you're a counselor, it's going to be important for you to kind of keep that in mind, that whatever it is that you're seeing from whoever it is you're engaging with, that's their process. And part of what we are required to do is to honor their process and be the support. So if we're going to use the frame of we need to show up as leaders, irrespective of our profession, then the question becomes, well, what is a leader? A leader is not about your job title. A leader is somebody who is going to influence another human being, okay? And so that's kind of something to think about as we try to figure out how do we support in the best way possible. So we're going to need to influence. So leaders, the meaning of leadership is your ability to influence others, to do, be, show up more than, you're going to inspire people to give their best, to do their best, to tap into strengths that they didn't know that they had. And so that's kind of what we are being called to do in our professional capacity. Now, here is the tricky part about this concept of leadership, though. So there are 4 levels. And most of us are navigating up to level 3, just given our professional capacity. What is the first level? If you can't influence yourself and lead yourself, you can't influence or lead anybody else. So the first level of leadership is you have to be able to influence self. You have to be able to manage self. The second level is you need to be able to influence one other person other than you. The third level is you have to be able to influence groups, organizations, and that is at the level at which HR is going to come in. I would imagine for psychologists, it would be being able to influence one other person. You also might have to influence groups and even organizations. And then the fourth level is countries and nations and all of that. And so there are certain things to think about as you consider your role as a leader. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because, so I prepared something, but I'm going to be going back and forth through it. And so I'm going to share my screen. And are you able to see my screen? And I need to, yes. Okay. So So this afternoon we're going to engage. It's not a lecture per se, but we're going to engage with the idea of how do we cope with this catastrophe that has happened to our island. And even though we were not, say, in the West, know that you are being affected, okay? And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about this evening. But before I get into that, I want to hear from people. How are you doing? How are you doing? And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can hear you. Tell me, how are you doing? And I'm trying to come out. Okay, how do I stop sharing? This always gets me. How do I stop sharing my screen? Okay, wait.
There's a little button at the top,
right to the
which
top.
says
That
red.
yeah.
Okay, right to the
Just
top.
click on stop share. Yes.
Oh, I'm not seeing. Oh, okay.
When you
I
hover, when you hover over it.
I got it. It's so easy. I stop using this and then I forget.
Sorry. We're seeing Shade raising her hand.
Shade, can you?
And remember, you had said you didn't mind people, so we should at least tell them that. You didn't mind people asking questions.
So Shade, you don't have to come on. You don't have to come on video. So Shade, how are you doing? And Ollie, if you can you write down something so we can come back around to it, as we wrap up. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for the question. How am I doing?
Yes.
I would like to say that I am doing well as can be, except to say that I am in the empathy mode, where I am choosing to stand in solidarity with those who have suffered loss, not just with those who were severely impacted by the hurricane, i.e., they lost their home or they lost their lives, etc. But I'm also standing in empathy for others who have been affected and traumatized by a once-in-a-lifetime event that we are responding to it in different ways. And for me, I think I'm saying that I find that our leaders are insensitive to the passing of Hurricane Melissa. Insensitive in the sense that
Shadi, could I just interrupt you just one sec? Because this part of it relates to how do I influence myself. And so the reason that I want you to keep the focus on you, how are you feeling? So this is not about anybody else.
Okay.
But you. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
How am I doing? I am doing well.
How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
I am feeling, however, my feelings are, it's like I have a toolkit in front of me and I'm trying to find various devices and mechanisms to help me to cope, because there isn't a manual, there isn't a guideline, there isn't anything that I can necessarily piggyback on except my faith to guide me through this situation that's currently facing the country. So that's basically where I am at. I'm trying to find various tools, various aids to help me to navigate how I'm feeling, to help me to help me how to work better. Finding things to teach me, because I like to learn as to how I can navigate through this particular crisis. And so I'm just looking at what is before me that can help me to continue. That's how I am feeling.
Okay, thank you so much, Shadi. One of the things that I want to mention is that all of the professions that are here, so HR, psychology, counseling, social work, because we are so focused on helping others, there is a tendency to overlook self and to overlook, what am I feeling on the inside? Is this anxiety? Is this fear? Is this anger? Is this confusion? And so part of having a solid base from which to launch in terms of supporting others is that it's going to be really important to have a clear sense of, so what am I going through? You know, and because our profession kind of trains us for it to be about others, there is a tendency for us to just jump over self. And this can create complications for us down the road. And hence, that's kind of the reason that I'm starting with, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you doing? Since Melissa was out there for 5 days tormenting us and then hit us for 2.5 days of, and just wound up on Tuesday evening. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What have you been doing? Okay, I see another hand. Hugh Winter, Institute.
Hi, Dr. Rosemarie Johnson. How are you doing?
Hello, my friend. I am
Good to see you.
Same here.
Yeah, so for me, it has been a very long last week, as you would say. And just as you say, I wasn't really checking in on myself. I was more so concerned with others. And I realized that I got to a point where I was feeling burnt out. I was feeling overwhelmed. And it's because I wasn't really processing my emotion. I was more so, I can't believe this is happening. And to experience such a hurricane to that level, and also the destruction, cause I went into the active mode, which is to support. And immediately after the hurricane, I was like, what can I do? And that's all I've been doing since last week, is doing stuff actively, even up to today, getting stuff to just ensure that others are okay. So it's really interesting to see that I haven't really been pausing to say how I'm feeling, but more so how I can assist others currently. That's where I'm at.
Right. And so the hint for everybody, even if you don't say anything, you have to start with self. You got to start with self and make sure you're okay, that you can serve even better and support even better.
I agree.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Sure, thanks. How are you doing? Anybody else? And you don't have to speak in the mic. You can put it in the chat, and Olivine will let me know. How are you doing? What has
Dr.
been
Johnson?
Yes, hi, Allison.
So physically, I'm okay. My home wasn't severely impacted or anything, but as the days go by, I find that I'm feeling some major survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
In terms of, I'm feeling like almost bad that nothing happened to me. Because there is just such devastation elsewhere, that like, how can I be going to work? How can I be thinking about, writing memos and stuff and whatever? How can I be going along like, nothing will happen? So that's, I have to be trying to deal with that, and not watching all the videos of people's stories and stuff, which doesn't really help the mental state. But yeah, that's where I am
Okay,
right now.
thanks, Allison. Anita, what have been your feelings, your thoughts, your behavior since Melissa?
Initially, I started out feeling very sad,
Yeah.
but I've just been very deliberate with the content that I consume.
Okay,
So
good.
I avoid all the videos that have been surfacing on social media, and just try to spend time loving on the people who matter to me the most. So I'm doing a little bit more checking in, and just being grateful for the fact that, you know, my family didn't lose much and there were no lives lost. And just try to be grateful in all things. When I look at what is happening in the West and everybody else who have been seriously impacted. So that's just been my strategy. I just try to listen to music that help with my mental health.
Absolutely.
Keep me positive.
Okay, thanks, Anita.
You're welcome.
Tisha.
Good night, everybody. It's Tasia.
Tasia, sorry.
Okay. So I personally have been trying to deal with the guilt of not being able to do what other people are doing, because I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with the amounts that you want to do but you aren't able to do at this moment. Considering that life is going back to normal for the persons who weren't physically affected. So I have to think about the schoolwork that I have to be doing. I have to think about still continuing what I was doing before, like with family life and stuff like that. And then dealing with the guilt of, okay, I can't go out and volunteer today because I have this paper that I need to do. I can't go out and give blood today because, listen, something is happening in my household as well. So those are the things that I'm trying to compartmentalize. But I keep on having to remind myself that, hey, the help doesn't end with this week. There is the people will continue to need help. The relief effort doesn't end with this month. It's continuous. So I will have all the time to help, and so that's what I'm constantly reminding myself, even though they really need the help now. People are doing what they can and when they can. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much.
We have somebody, Linton, in the chat.
Okay.
Said, honestly, it's been exhausting. The year has been a hectic one, and Hurricane Melissa has compounded all of that. It's like it's just sadness all around, and it does take a toll on my mental and emotional well-being. And Sophia Morgan says, range of emotions, expectant/anxious, afraid, distressed, relieved, helpless, overwhelmed, guilty, grateful. So that's a cacophony of things happening,
All right. Anybody else? So I want to say this because I think giving yourself the right framed expectation is going to be important. Life can't go back to normal. For all of us, life is going to be different. And so it's important not to give your mind that task, because it won't be able to be successful at it, because things are different. You can't unchange what has happened. And so so if your thoughts go there, part of how you re-navigate out of it is to remind yourself that things won't be the same. Even though your roof may have stayed on, and even though, your house didn't blow away, or even though we are all interconnected. And so things are gonna be different for all of us. Anybody else? How are you doing? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
How are you doing?
Hi, Ronald. He was he trying to say something, Ollie?
I'm not sure.
Okay, all
I'm
right.
not sure.
Anybody else? How are you doing? What has it been like for you since? Or what has been the hardest part?
Marjorie's giving you an applause, so it'd be interesting to know why. What is she responding so positively to?
Okay,
Marjorie?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Marjorie.
Wrong emotion. It was a question. I was trying to raise my hand.
Okay.
I was just wondering what would be the trigger for the emotion of guilt in this context, and how could we address it?
Okay, absolutely. And so guilt actually, and we'll come back and do some of these Q&As at the end. Guilt actually is a common emotional reaction and response from survivors of trauma, survivers of something that's really intense. And so
that girl there.
say that Nadian, you were saying something? Okay. So Marjorie, guilt is a normal reaction because the mind, especially with people who are, I would call them empaths, people who really, really care about others and want the best for others, you know, when they see that others are hurting and their life is seemingly okay, there is, because they care so much about others, it brings up the guilt, you know, and we see it as it's a common reaction when we have significant tragedies and trauma, and it needs to be addressed and redirected. The emotion needs to be directed in a way that the person can use it as a catalyst in a way that is gonna not only serve self, but serve others. So guilt, it's about reminding the person that they didn't do anything wrong. You know, they didn't cause the neighbor's house top to blow off and theirs to remain intact. And so guilt is saying that somehow I am responsible for what has gone wrong. And it's how you work with that is to help people to reframe what they're considering their responsibility, and rechannel it into something that is gonna serve them, because guilt doesn't serve us. It just makes us feel worse, and it saps energy that could be redirected into support for self and for others. Yeah, I see.
Aisha has up her hand, but there are two comments. Aisha, were you gonna be saying how you felt? Was that what you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then I'll read the two comments.
Good night, everyone. So for me, I'm feeling mixed emotions. So one thing is that I feel helpless. That's one. There's a feeling of helplessness and about the fact that I would want to help in different ways, and I'm not able to help. I'm not able to be physically there as well. So that has been bothering me. Two, I also feel like I'm floating. So floating in the sense that something traumatic happened on I'd say the Wednesday, and then before that, and then on Wednesday at the end of the day, you have no light, you have no water, and then you get a call, well, you need to be at work tomorrow, without the consideration that, oh, things might be happening. So it's like the need that you have to come back to reality. You have to come back to school. You have to come back to work and pretend like everything is okay. So it's like you're floating. You're there, but you're really not there.
Okay, okay. And Aisha, know that sort of detachment, it literally it is a coping strategy. So there are certain strategies that are conscious and certain strategies that, you know, the inner wisdom in us just kind of takes over. And so we see detachment, or the floating sensation that you're talking about, when the stress gets to be too much, you know, and so it's a way to kind of preserve self as you kind of go through the motions. And so it underscores the point I made earlier, that whatever it is that you're feeling is kind of what you need to feel as we all start healing from this. You know, there is an inner wisdom inside of all of us that knows what to do psychologically when there are stressors that we have to navigate. And you know, I find it comforting, because this is what I truly believe, that there is something inside of all of us that is stronger than anything that could ever happen to us. And I think that for myself, and I also think it for the people who are clients. And what I find is that it helps me to not freak out, regardless of how distressing what I'm looking at might seem. Because whatever it is that I'm seeing, my thought is, this is the beginning of healing for whoever it is that is demonstrating whatever the behavior is, or whatever, you know, whatever the emotion is. And so just know that whatever it is that you're feeling and doing, that's what you need to do to start your process of healing. And it doesn't mean that there are not supports that we can provide that would help to cushion and accelerate the healing. But it's important not to freak out about where you are or where somebody else is. Okay? Because there is something, the same power that gives us breath has also given us this thing that is there to preserve and protect. So I find that helpful, especially when the human part of me initially gets freaked out by the things that I'm seeing. Okay. Anybody else?
We have two in the chat. Malik
Okay.
says, I'm feeling mentally clocked out. It is a traumatic experience for the survivors as well as the persons directly affected.
Right.
With all the help I've provided so far, I still feel helpless. I feel angry. I feel depressed, and an overall guilt even to eat when I know others are hungry.
Right.
So there's that. You wanted to deal with that, or you want to hear Mark or Dean?
Just to say again, I think that it's important, especially for us leaders who are going to be on the front line of this. I think it's important to remember our humanness. It's important to remember that we are humans like the people who have been affected. And so it's impossible to do everything. And so it is, what one thing have I done today that made somebody's life a little easier? And to adjust the expectations, and to know that you were spared because you have a job to do with the healing of the nation. You were spared. You need to eat and have your strength because you're going to need it, because you're going to be there to support somebody else who has less internal resources than you. And so when the guilt comes up, I think it's important for you to remind yourself, I didn't cause this. You know, I didn't cause this. The thing that I can do is to help one person. And so it's about adjusting the expectations of self, which is also part of self-care that we are going to talk a little bit about. And it's okay if your mind goes there. And so again, I think that
come with it. This is a fantastic.
I think compassion for self is going to be so important here. And so even if your mind goes there, know that it doesn't have to stay there. You can bring your thoughts back to remind yourself that, you know what? I am doing the best that I can. And there are times when I'm going to need to step away because I need to preserve me, you know, and just know that all of that is okay.
All right, Dr. Morgan is waiting to say something. She has her hand up.
Okay. Okay, Sophie.
I'm trying to, okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the grief, the feeling of grief.
Yes.
That is very, very overwhelming for me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to process it and understand it.
Right.
Like, as the question was, why? Because it's so overwhelming. And I feel like once you have the capacity for empathy, like
Right.
once you allow yourself to imagine what others are going through, and all of us have experienced loss in some kind of way. And so it's not hard for us to imagine that loss. But of course, we have our imaginations are limited in terms of the magnitude of that loss.
Right.
So I think for me, it's like a sense of moral responsibility. I feel kind of an attachment to everybody, the whole collective attachment.
Right.
And so what they feel, I feel. And so the thing is, why am I not experiencing that as well? Because I'm a part of them. You know, I am, you know, if we think of the whole as part of the body,
right.
We are feeling that. So I think that's where the guilt is. Yeah. And of course, one other thing with the guilt, as I said, it's us processing our own vulnerabilities.
Right.
Like, oh, we're not all in control as we believe that we are. Yeah. So I just wanted to share because
it's okay not to be in control. It really
yes,
is.
It is. But
really
the guilt is a big one, and I wanted to add that.
The guilt and the grief. And so
the grief. Yeah.
I think that when we if we allow ourselves to love, then with that allowing is also equally the possibility of loss. And so, you know, I think that because love is such a magnet, and in my mind, that's what we came here to do and to be, we can't cut it off. You know, if we're intact, relatively speaking, we're gonna love and connect and attach to people, to things, And so because we're allowing ourselves to attach and to love, we also open ourselves up to the grief of loss. And to me, how I have reframed grief, of course, it comes with the sadness and all of the things that happen with grief. But to me, the fact that you're able to grieve says to me that you also are allowing yourself the joy of experiencing love, you know, and when you think about how good it feels to keep your heart open to connection, then to me, the pain that comes with loss doesn't equal that joy. And I think that that's the reason that as human beings, we keep kind of going to the well of connection and love. And so to me, grieving is a natural part of the process of letting go of something that was loved or something to which you were connected. And so I see that as a normal, natural reaction and response, not something to avoid. You know, I think what grieving is suggesting, and somebody mentioned that as a natural coping, it makes you want to hold on to what still is there. So you hug your kids more, you hug your kids more, you tell your friends how much you love them, you don't hold back when you have the opportunity for connection, because there is an awareness that nothing is gonna last forever. And so to me, it is a call to live fully. You know, it is a call to live fully in love without trying to protect and preserve, and because the freedom that comes with just risking and being, the joy of that is so much more powerful than, in my mind, than the pain that comes with grieving. And again, you know, whenever the guilt pops up, I think that it's going to be important to remind self that this is not your fault. You didn't have anything to do with this. What you can do, though, is that you can be a light for somebody who is still mired in the loss and the trauma of the catastrophe that their lives are going through. Any other questions or
there's one here, confusion. Mark has added confusion to the list of emotions. I don't typically experience strong emotions, so I feel confused sometimes about whether I'm feeling the right emotion and with the right intensity. So a bit of incongruence when interacting with others.
Okay. And so in my mind, there are no right emotions or wrong emotions. I think that just allowing self to be is gonna be really, really important as you master this first level of what I'm calling leadership. And so there is no right or wrong emotion. Whatever emotion shows up, it is the emotion that you need to feel in that moment, because it's telling you about something that you need. And so, for example, when sadness comes up, when you become aware of sadness, in my mind, the message from the emotion is that it's telling you that you need soothing. You know, you need pampering. You need to be taken care of.
I love this picture.
Sorry, Doc. Sorry, Anita, can you turn off your Annika? You can shut her down, Doc. You can do that.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, all right. And so, so I was saying that every emotion has a message for us in terms of what is it that we need in a particular moment. And so, if the emotion is confusion, what it might mean is just being still, pause and just not try to direct it, instead allow it. And whatever the feeling is that comes up, it's about being curious about it. So it could be sadness, wow, I wonder what is it that could be making me feel sad? And then it's when I heard the rain start again, this is when the sadness just filled me up. And then wonder, why would that be? And so it is, the confusion requires reflection. It requires going back inside and rewinding so that you can understand what's going on for you in a particular moment. And the emotions are going to change because our needs in any given moment, our needs are gonna be different. And so anger is another example. Anger comes up when there's a part of us that feels that something needs to be protected. And so the warrior in us is going to come to the fore. And the energy of anger is going to give us that strength to push through something that we probably otherwise wouldn't be able to push through. So all emotions are, experiencing all of your emotions are really, really, really important, because they're gonna provide information about self. And remember that level 1 of this leadership is being able to influence and master self. And if you're not able to do the first level of leadership, you're going to have problems in all of the other levels. And I'm sure that you've experienced that, that there's somebody who is in a position of leadership and they don't know how to manage self, they don't have a clue, and they make your life hell. And so it's, in order for you to be effective in terms of your influencing, it's going to be important that you get really comfortable with all of you. The parts of you that you love and the parts of you that you're in the process of growing. Okay. Anything else about that question that I was asking? I just wanted to get a feel for where people are.
Not in the chat, no.
Okay, all right. So what I'm gonna do next is it literally is kind of like, you already know this, but I thought I'd just kind of give you some notes, and I'll share the slides, and Olivine can distribute them. If you want them at the end, Olivine can provide them for you. But the purpose of the slides is to just give you a kind of cheat sheet. What are some things to look for in terms of the psychological effects of trauma at this level and at this scale, so that when you're engaging at the level of HR with employees and managers and whoever, if you're a psychologist, when you have to deal with individuals or families or groups, you have a sense of what are some of the emotions, because people have gotten through this. and then we'll talk a little bit about coping, and then we'll kind of take it from there. So I'm going to share my screen again. If there are no further questions, and this part is going to be really quick, because most of it I think you would have already know. All right. So this is hard, and I think the phrase Jano is a good way to kind of capture it in the Jamaican sense, that this is hard. What we're going through as a country is hard at the level of a country, but just know that because you are a caring human being, it is going to be hard for you as well. Because it's hard for you doesn't mean that there is anything wrong with you. Because it's hard for the people with whom you're going to interact and engage with, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with them. Our job or our role at this particular point is to be there for ourselves and be there for others. And starting with who is in our immediate sphere. And then if you're managing that, then it means you can broaden and put more people in. I would caution you not to jump in the deep end, because you need to build your strength up first before you try to go in and assist. Okay? Given what has happened with Melissa, all of us might be experiencing what we're calling this collective grief. And some of us are more sensitive to energy than others. Since Melissa happened, I feel the sadness of people I know that I don't know. But I feel the sadness inside of me. And I acknowledge it, I embrace it. And it doesn't mean that I am depressed. And so part of getting through this is allowing yourself to feel the emotion without being swept away by it, or without thinking that you need to do anything about it other than just experience it, okay? So collective grief happens when a group of people, usually a nation, a community, experience a catastrophic loss or the fallout from death or multiple deaths, okay? And we just had the experience of Melissa. I keep hearing from people who go to ground zero that what we see on social media cannot prepare you for what it feels like in person. And I think that is important to keep in mind, especially for those of you who are thinking of, I want to go and look. You might need to protect yourself with distance, especially if you are feeling unstable on the inside, or your emotions are at such an intensity that it's hard for you to even manage self. Okay. And so in this time, it's going to be critical that you take care of yourself first before you attempt to offer assistance to anybody. Because what is going to happen is if you're going in there and you're just as fragile as the person who has experienced the trauma firsthand, we're now going to have two people who are going to need support. Okay. So what are the psychological effects? They're short-term effects and there are long-term effects. And some of you've mentioned, so there's emotional distress. So there's fear, there's anxiety, sadness, anger, helplessness, grief, guilt. Understand that your thinking is going to be disrupted. And all of you, or for those of you who are students, it's not, life is different. So it's going to be important that you show yourself some grace. Your mind is not going to work in the same way that it was working before, Melissa. You're going to have problems concentrating, making decisions. And I heard two people talk about the feeling of detachment. This is a disruption in your thinking. And all of these short-term effects can and oftentimes reverse themselves. They're effects that relate to your physical body, so headaches, nausea, fatigue, a heightened startle reflex, sleep disturbances. If you're an organized and efficient person, know that you can't expect the same of yourself. For those of you who are lecturers who are also listening, it's going to be important that you think about this not only for yourself, but for your students. For those of you who are in HR and you're currently working and going to school, understand that the people at work, you might start getting more complaints. You might have to do a lot of education of people who might not understand that even though Kingston is in a geographically different place, say from Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, the psychological effects the people in Kingston are not spared from the psychological effects, okay? What are some long-term effects? We often see post-traumatic stress symptoms. So we have flashbacks, nightmares, the hypervigilance, the avoidance of triggers, and that can get to the place where it significantly interrupts or disturbs the person's way of living. You have depression, anxiety. And so these are feelings of hopelessness, sadness, worry. Know that it's hard to be the container of, and what do I mean by container? So if somebody is very depressed or very anxious, understand that because those emotions carry a particular energy and we feel energy, know that if you're in the presence of that even if you numb yourself from the experiencing of it, know that it is getting inside and having an effect on you. And we're going to talk more about how you cope, but this is kind of the reason that it's so important for you to be in touch with, what am I feeling? Because if you're not aware of what you're feeling, then you're not able to handle it. And so if you continue to go into or try to be of support to people, when you're not processing out your emotions and your feelings, it can result in not only you creating more stress for yourself, but creating stress for the person you're trying to assist. There is such a thing as complicated grief. And we say complicated grief when grief is intense and prolonged, okay? And so the question then, so how long is long? And again, I don't think that we have a clear answer for that. I think that the people who are able to just be, and if they feel like crying, they cry. If they want to get angry, the people who allow themselves to feel the emotion of the loss tend to do better than people who are avoiding dealing with what the situation is. Relationships get strained in the aftermath of serious trauma. And so one of the things to think about as you think about the people with whom you work or your colleagues, there's increased conflicts that arise. There is social withdrawal. And so when people are trying to deal with trauma and the magnitude of the stress here, we go into survival mode. And in survival mode, it's hard for us to take the perspective of somebody else. We become self-focused when we're in survival mode, and stress puts us in survival mode. So just think about that. There are also behavioral changes. So we're looking for, the self-medication that alcohol can provide and drugs. People might start overeating or not eating, sleep patterns get disrupted. Survival guilt, it's quite common in terms of some of the long-term effects. Okay, so some things to think about. There's some factors that influence how the trauma is going to impact, or the disaster. And one of them is a type of disaster. And research tells us that man-made disasters sometimes have more significant mental health impact than natural disasters. But in spite of all of that, it depends on how long the trauma is, the length and the severity, regardless of whether it's man-made or not. And what has been different about Melissa is not just that how long it occurred, but because it was moving so slowly, it's just also how intense it was. And so we were in prep mode for weeks, and then we just sat and waited and waited and waited. And then it came and took its own sweet time to move on. Okay? Whether people have lost things or they're injured or somebody has died, that also will influence the impact. Whether you've been displaced, those things will influence the impact. And so as you're working with people, and regardless of whether it's social work, HR, psychology, or counseling, these are some things to think about. So in addition to the psychological responses that we've talked about, here are some other things that will intensify the sadness or the grief or the guilt. Okay, so has the person lost everything? Did somebody die? And so we're getting into what we're calling a complex grief response. We need to pay special attention to vulnerable groups like children, the elderly, people who are marginalized. And one of the things to think about here for us in Jamaica is, the impact of poverty. So people who are already living in poverty, they're going to be even more decimated by something like this. I'm gonna stop sharing and just ask, are there any thoughts? Are there any questions about, you know, as I was sharing this information that is such a common part of what to expect. Do you have any reflections? Do you have any thoughts?
One of the things that we're getting is that some the news is telling us about some people who are not responding in this way. So I heard, for instance, people are now holding people up at gunpoint to steal the aid, to steal the supplies. So we do have people who are not playing the game then.
Right.
How do we respond to them? Because I know that I have actually considered withdrawing my help. Because if this is how people are going to react, and obviously it's not the people who are receiving the aid, but I'm not going to put myself at risk to be held up just because I'm carrying things in my car to give to people, that sort of thing.
Got it. And so to me, the world is made up of all types of people, and they're people who their business in life is to exploit situations and exploit people. And how my approach to that is that it's always best to be true to self and allow your behaviors to align with your values. And so if your value is to help and to give, then the question then becomes, how can I do this safely? And so it's not that I'm going to stop my desire to assist and help, because there are thugs out there. The fix for that would be, I still need to make my behaviors align with my values. So it is, I'm going to give, and then I'm going to take the extra precaution for safety. And so to me, that's kind of how that could be worked out. And so, like with most things, I think that we achieve inner peace if we can engage in behaviors that align with our values, and not engage in behaviors that are in response to some external sort of situation. And so, yeah, it is unfortunate that there are people who will exploit situations, and how we manage it is to stay consistent with our values and then take the necessary steps. I see Grace. Grace has her hand up.
Yes. Dr. Johnson, I just was sort of reflecting on a lot of this, and just as you have said, it requires a lot of change in our behaviors, and it brings me back to just some basic change management skills, in that if you can't manage your own change, then you're not going to be able to really give of yourself to others. And I just thought I wanted to reinforce what you're saying, in that we first have to manage our own approach to this change, because it requires change. It requires a big change in how we even interact with others, as you've said, trying to recognize that not everybody's going to openly express what they've been through or what they're feeling. But I think it's very, very important, like you've said, that if we can't cope ourselves, then don't set out at first to try to help someone else, because you have to be in a position first to manage yourself. And especially as an HR partner, you have to first be able to cope with this change before you can significantly help others. So I think it's going to be very important for HR to really step back and look at themselves. And likewise, the social practitioners, you know, really spend some time trying to heal yourself first so that you can be valuable to the others.
Okay. Thanks for that, Grace. Here's what I would add. That regardless of where we are in terms of our own personal journey, I think it's important to know that there is something you can do right now with what you have. And so what it might mean is just doing less, you know, and so the caution would be not to bite off more than you can chew, in a sense. The caution would be to know that you can help while you're strengthening yourself. And so part of understanding self is not, there is no such thing as I am totally psychologically there. There is no such thing. All of us are in process. I think the important thing to know, though, is knowing self is recognizing, you know what, I need a break now. So I'm talking about it like that. You know, okay, I'm dealing with all of this, and I feel like if I don't go out, if I don't take a time out, I am gonna bite this person's head off. Let me go take the time out. And so you don't have to be perfectly okay, because there is no such thing, in order to be of help. The important thing, though, is you have to know yourself and know when you're coming to your edge, so that you can take steps to pull yourself back, get yourself, regroup, reset, and come again. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying that be aware of you, so that you know when you are getting in the deep, so you can stop, regroup, and come out again, reset, so you can continue the service that you need to provide. Yes, Sophie?
All right. So I like the model that you framed this with, managing self, managing others, managing groups, managing, what was it, people beyond or sphere of influence. Right.
Yes.
The nation.
Yeah, right. But I think if we think of the whole experience in that way, we've been talking a lot about managing self. And I mean, I hadn't thought of, the comment Olivia made about all of the things that are happening. I think we've been just focused on, giving and looking for people, and, but the other element that Olivia raised is a serious one about people being robbed. Again, it talks us a different side of me, because if I think of myself as part of the collective, I am that person as well. I am that person who could do that, who if put in a situation of desperation, I could rob and for survival purposes. So I don't even think of it as those people versus me.
Okay.
So when I think of it as such, I feel some kind of empathy
Okay.
Because like I asked myself, are we this kind of people, or is it the situation really
Okay. Okay.
that is bringing out this side of who we are? So it's very complex for me, and I think when I think of managing me and managing people beyond my sphere of influence or groups, that's where my head goes. Like, how can I contribute in a way that mitigate that kind of behavior, rather than thinking of people as just evil and greedy? And if I'm to really be a true social psychologist, as I would say, and think that is less about the disposition, but more about the context and the situation that brings out this in people.
And so,
So, yeah. So my
that's
thing is,
that's an interesting thought, Sophie. And so this is what
Mhm.
this is. So what I would add is that you're correct that that situations, all of us, we're capable of any behavior. So anything.
Yeah.
So the humanness in us, given the right circumstances, can bring out all types of behavior, any type of behavior. That is, I agree with that. I also know, though, that there are people whose agenda is about manipulation and getting over. And so I think it's important to understand that as well, that there is a difference between the person who is gonna rob to eat and the person who has an AK-40 something to do something. And the two things can coexist. And I think it's important to keep in mind that for whatever reason, and to me, that's a totally another discussion, there are people whose intentions are not good. And so,
that's true.
And so it is important.
Thanks for that reminder.
And so it's important for us.
Because I
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was saying thanks for the reminder, because I think the part of me that wants to not think of that evil or those kind of malintent wants to think of it as such, only as such. So I'm saying thanks for that reminder. I think, a more positive orientation would be to think of it in the way I described. So I'm saying thanks for the balance.
Okay.
All
right.
So, but yeah, thanks for the balance.
So one way to integrate in my mind both is to separate the human from the behavior. So behaviorally, there are people who don't have good intentions, but they're still, they're still God's creatures, or
Yeah.
but I think it's important to know that not everybody has good intentions, and so how you approach that has to be different in terms of just preserving self, so you can then serve and be of service to others. Any other comments or questions? So in terms of the coping part, I thought that, having a broad framework for, how can I begin to think about this using a framework that I can apply? And there's so many ways of thinking about coping and what to do. But I thought of, what is a simple way to conceptualize it so that, so that it is user-friendly to HR, social workers, counselors, psychologists, okay? And there is this thing called human needs psychology. It's building onto what Maslow talks about, but it's a little bit different. And so according to human needs psychology, we have basic needs that we try to meet in our everyday lives, consciously or unconsciously. And when we align our needs with our highest values, then we will feel more complete and fulfilled. So that's the idea behind it. And the part that is of interest is that there are 6 basic human needs which are universal. And I think that if we looked at what these are, it will give us a sense of how is it that we approach people who have been traumatized, or how do we approach ourselves, when we are dealing with situations that are difficult. And so what are these 6 human needs? So there is certainty. So it's all of us have a need for security, stability, and reliability. What Melissa has done is that it has ripped it from us and more so from the people who have had everything taken from them. In addition to certainty, we have a need and a desire for change and stimulation and challenge. This need to me makes a lot of sense when things are too mundane or is the same thing over and over again. And I don't necessarily see, so to me, in terms of Melissa, it's just too much change. All of us have a need for change, but if it becomes too much, it is going to throw us into overwhelm. And then all of us need to feel acknowledged, recognized values. That's the need for significance. We all need love and connection. So we need to love. We need to feel loved, and we need to feel connection with others. We also need to grow, improve, and develop in our character and in our spirit. And all of us need to contribute. That is, we need to give to help others and to make a difference. And I think that if you think about yourself and reflect on yourself, there are aspects of these needs that have been tapped into. And so if you think about yourself, which of these needs have been impacted by this Melissa disaster? And we can talk about this on the other end. So if you have questions about this, and having identified what they are, what can you do in the short term to address it? What can you do in the long term? I want to point out that last need, contribution, it encompasses all of the needs before it, okay? So when we give, when we help others, and when we make a difference, we are satisfying we are satisfying certainty, we're satisfying uncertainty, significance, we're satisfying growth, okay? And so it's not surprising to me that for many people, once they heard of what happened, there's an instinct to, I want to do something. And in my mind, it is the inner wisdom inside that is trying to steer us to something that is not only going to help us to cope, but also help us to grow, help us to love, to connect, help us to feel acknowledged, help us to reestablish security, and stability. Okay? And so here is a kind of checklist about how to cope. We need to acknowledge our feelings and the feelings of others. And remember that acknowledging somebody's feelings is not to try to tell them what to feel or what not to feel. Everything they feel is what they're supposed to feel, okay? And it's just being with them as they feel. A common reaction to tragedies like this is to numb out. And numbing is a way to preserve and protect the self. Just know that whatever it is that you're feeling, it's normal in the sense that something like this causes us to feel a range of emotions. Self-care during this time is going to be essential. Just remember, though, it's unique for each of us. Because you're going to be given more, it means you're going to need to be pouring more into yourself. Remember that I was also saying that pouring into self is also to understand that you're not going to be operating at 100%. And so it's not for you to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. It's for you to acknowledge that you're probably, if you were 100% before, you might be operating at 60. And just accept that as that's okay for now. It's going to be important that you don't bottle the feelings up, that you talk, you share with others. I don't know if you notice, that the people are outside talking to one another. There is something that is instinctive and intuitive in all of us. And so even the people who have been devastated, just observe what it is that they're doing, because there is something that automatically kicks in that is not only healing, but it's helpful for the people who are around. Staying active. So for some people, staying home was not an option. They needed to come back out even if they're not at 100%. So having something to do, having a purpose, being able to go to school might be helpful for some people. So just sitting and not having structure, just understand that might be more stressful. But even if people are coming, say, to a job or to school, it's going to be really important to understand they're not functioning at 100%. For children, it's going to be so important to talk to them, to reassure them, so that you're bringing back their certainty. For the employees who have children, it's going to be important not only that HR refer, but the person might start talking to you, and it's going to be important that you kind of have some general information to share. Be compassionate with yourself and others. Just remember, all of us, we're doing the best we can with what we have. And so there are times when we're gonna be okay, and then there are times when we're not. And it is for us, if we're feeling stronger than our neighbor, just go give a helping hand. And if you're feeling that your energy is being depleted, you need to know when to pause it, go refuel, refill, reset, so you can come back and be helpful. This is a marathon, guys. It's not a sprint. And our lives are going to be changed. And just understand that change is a good thing. Although in the midst of it, it feels really, really rough. But just know that if we lean on each other, if we do what is natural for us, if we if we operate from the heart and not the head, we're going to get it right. Okay. And so in a time like this, just listening can be helpful. Just giving somebody a hug, that can make the world a difference. Just saying, how you doing? And so know that right where you are right now, you can make a difference in somebody's life, and a significant difference. You know, just being a human being, you know, come from your heart and you'll never, ever get it wrong. All right. Any questions or comments, or, you know, is there a specific situation that you're dealing with that you would like some feedback?
I was looking, you just mentioned, you know, listening can help people. Well, I was asking about some basic, I see Dr. Martin Hall's hand, but I was just asking about some practical basic skills. So for instance, don't tell people what to do. You might say, this helped me, but of course you make your own choice, and things like listening more than speaking, and how do you active listen? Those are the sorts of things. You know, avoiding platitudes, avoiding, you know, the advice and that sort of thing. But you can do those later, I suppose, if they're not quite in line here. But I was wondering about those as well, the actual practical things we can do.
So to me, there are things that are very technical. So active listening, in my mind, is a very technical psychology kind of tool and technique. And so the practical way I hear it explained. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you listen twice as much as you speak. Active listening just means resisting the temptation that how your worldview is the other person's worldview. So even if you've experienced something in the presence of another person, it's going to be important that you understand that the meaning that they are going to make of that is going to be different from yours. And so the reason that we emphasize listening is that you don't know what's going on inside of somebody's head. You don't know how they create their world. And the only way that you can know it is if you ask them. You don't know what they're going to feel or how they're going to feel, because feelings are as unique as a fingerprint. And what they're calling sad might not be what you call sad. And so the key is your job as a listener in a non-technical way is to try to understand, how are they doing it in their head? That's it. How are they doing it in their head? And you don't know. You do not know. They're the only ones who can tell you. And then the idea is, you have, just as how you honor your feelings, it's going to be important that you honor theirs. And you're going to have a hard time honoring their feelings if you don't honor you don't honor yours. If you think that I shouldn't feel this and I shouldn't do this, then that's exactly what you're going to go do and tell somebody else. And so again, it starts with self. You know, it starts with self. And when you're okay inside of your skin, you'll be amazed how you allow another person just to be, without you trying to tell them what to do, what to think, and how to be. And so you don't have to agree with what people are doing, and you can make space for not agreeing and still listening. Okay, Grace.
Dr. Martin Hall?
Are you hearing? Her mic is muted.
Dr. Martin Hall?
Sorry, yeah, here I am. I've had a couple of students call me and, express real desperation. I have no water, I have no light, and I think I'm just going to quit the program, and come back again. And what I would like to say to these students, Dr. Johnson, and maybe you can help me to reinforce or agree or disagree with me, is that especially HR students, we have to be resilient. And as I said before, we have to find a way to cope. This hurricane, yes, is very devastating, but I remember as a child the 1951 hurricane. And I remember my parents building a brand new house. And what do you think happened? Just as we moved in the house, we had the hurricane and the whole roof came off. And we had no light and water for months and months. And my mother sat us down and father and said, listen, this is what's happening. This is what we have to do. If we have one loaf of bread, we're going to make it, last, etc., etc. And we learned as children to become a bit resilient. So I'd like to encourage the students not to get into a state of despair. And not every day you're going to feel well and you're going to feel good. And not every day we're going to have the water. But if we can just step away that day, tomorrow is a brighter day. And if we can just say we have to cope, because when you think about it, especially for second year students, you step away from your program now. What guarantee do you have that you're going to be able to find yourself back in a position to come back to the program? You'll have it hanging over your head. You'll always say, geez, maybe I should have just tried to cope that day, etc. So I just want to sort of encourage the students not to get into a state of despair, because we are here as the lecturers, we're here as psychologists to help you. So if you really feel that way, ensure you reach out to us, because there are options. There are options. You don't have to quit your studies. And we're here to really help you, because I hear that desperation coming in. How am I going to take my exam? Why do I have to take the exam? But I think that, we have to find a way as HR practitioners to sort of step back. And those of you that are not HR practitioners, but have aspirations to be in HR or in other supervisory positions, I'd like to say, yes, it's a desperate time, but take 2 steps back and think. Go drink a cup of tea and think through it and say, tomorrow I'll get up again and think about it. Not to be reactive, because I see a lot of reactive thoughts coming through. I'm just going to quit right now. So I don't know what else we can really say to them, but I'm a bit concerned about the immediate reactive nature of some of what I'm hearing.
Okay, thanks for that, Grace. And so my approach to a student who is overwhelmed, because that's kind of how I would interpret the behavior. My approach to a student who is overwhelmed is to help them to come down from the place of overwhelm, so that their problem solving skills, their natural problem solving skills can kick in. But what I know is that I can't tell them to do it. I have to guide them to connect to what they already have inside of them. And that can get a little bit technical. So if a student is saying that to me, my interpretation is, okay, the student is overwhelmed, and what is my role as lecturer or HR or counselor or psychologist is to, in that moment, it's help them to get from the place of overwhelm, crisis, to a place where they're more calm. And so part of that is to acknowledge so to me, the easiest way to neutralize a feeling is to give it expression. So it means listening to the overwhelm, giving it space to come out and breathe, or come out of the head and into the, and so tell me more. What makes you think that, I get you don't have light, you don't have water, you don't have, tell me what else is making you feel that this is impossible. And part of the listening, and now this I think, Ollie, you were asking me about the active listening. Part of the active listening now is that I am literally listening for something that I can feed back to the student that came out of them that is an indication of a strength or a problem-solving strategy. And it could be a little thing. So to me, initially, it needs to be something small that I can give them to hold on to. So part of what you're trying to do is to help them to believe in themselves again. And how you do it is that it has to come from them. It can't come from you. So the skill is, how do I connect them to their inner strength? Because even though they are overwhelmed, it is still there. It is still there. And so part of it is the acknowledgement of, yes, you have every right to be overwhelmed. This is a time when we doubt, can I do this? And so you're joining them where they are. So they're not in the let me fight and convince her why I need to drop out. No, you're agreeing that this is hard, and the thought of quitting, a lot of people would do it. Is there, should we give this some time to breathe first? And again, it's, nobody likes to be told what to do. Nobody. And so part of the strategy of what we do as helping professionals is we direct their thinking so they think that they're the ones coming up with the suggestions that we're guiding them to. But again, there is a way to do it. And the way that you start is to join them where they are in the overwhelm without the judgment, and allow them to decompress by just talking it out. And as they're talking it out, we're listening for any indications, any little thing that would remind them that they have strength inside of them. And then you feed that back. And then ask the question about, you think that could help? Or do you have any ideas about how this could possibly work? This is hard. There's no question. You're right. There's no water. There's no this. There's no that. You can say, I know you want to get this out of the way. I know you want to get this out of the way. And I think they'd agree with you. I know you don't want to prolong your time in A, B, C, or D. And so to me, the key is you have to deal with the emotion first before they're going to be able to move to the problem solving part of it.
Okay.
We have two very interesting comments.
Yes.
Shadi says, I agree that resilience is essential. However, we've endured countless traumas, especially in the wake of COVID-19, earthquakes, and other national challenges.
Yes.
I believe we now need to take a proactive and compassionate approach to building resilience, one that focuses on continuous support and healing rather than simply enduring hardship. And that's the point, because we're talking about Hurricane Melissa, but remember, we had an earthquake 2 weeks ago. We had 300 earthquakes last year. We're coming out of COVID-19 where we're shut down for 2.5 years. It really is one thing on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. It's as if you're swimming upstream. It really does feel that way. And the other thing, O'Neill Dow, he's saying that concerns in higher education and student services, one, competencies of faculty, administrators in identifying or engaging students requiring psychological support. Well, we had said that if it's beyond us, then we have to refer people. And then two, balancing act. Students need to escape social media by attempting to focus on their studies. But educational institutions are being asked to prioritize mental health. How do we do this when students wish to disconnect from the realities and hardships? And three, should we really ask and probe about psychological needs if you cannot really assist in providing support? And again, this thing about stirring up muddy water or just leaving it to settle.
So there are several layers. So can we go back to the first question?
The competencies of faculty and administrators in identity.
So there were two people, but the first person.
The thing about, we have this stacking of hardship. So we went through COVID-19.
Right.
We've had several earthquakes. We had a hurricane last year.
Right.
We just one thing after another.
And of course, so life keeps punching. Life is not letting up. And so how I look at that, it says to me then is, what practices can I engage in on a daily basis so that the punches don't feel so hard? And so life is going to keep coming at us. And so to me, if I were to use the analogy of the physical body, so if we don't want to catch a cold, we need to make sure that our immune system is strong. And there's certain actions that we can take to make sure that we're buffered from the germs and all of the stuff that's out there. I see that as the same thing that we need to do for our mental health. I think that often we as individuals, we don't prioritize ourselves in terms of, am I managing my stress? Am I sleeping properly? Am I putting inside of my body the nutrients that I need? And so to me, how you provide yourself with immunity for what life is going to throw at you is that you have to do the things that bolster joy inside of you. You have to do the things that bolster inner peace. You have to engage in actions that are going to build you up so you can face the world. And so what I have noticed with myself, I know that a lot of you don't have this luxury, but in order for me to stay centered, I have to spend 3 hours on me every day, talking about mind, body, spirit. And so what I think that we have not been encouraged to do is to spend time with self, just quiet time. We're so busy trying to take care of everything and everybody that our capacity to withstand stress has been weakened. And so to me, my approach to that is, you're correct that we have been punched and it's never ending. And so what it means is that we have to know what makes us feel good and do more of that, because that's what gives us mental strength to deal with the things that life is going to slap at us. And so that's kind of, because it's not going to stop. The licks are not going to stop. And so what it means is, how do you make yourself stronger? And I'm oversimplifying, but it boils down to this. You gotta make time for the things that bring you joy. You have to make time for the things that create peace inside of you. And you need to do more of those things. And if and it's not a one-to-one, and especially if you're out of practice with doing it, you might have to emphasize it a lot for you to even begin to see it balancing out. And so to me, I think that we feel the stress and the pressure of life because we're all running on empty. We don't take the time to fill up. And the thing is, life not going to get any less complicated. In my mind, the traumas are going to keep punching us. And so to me, the fix is we're going to have to build up our internal constitution. The other question was what?
Dr. Olympia seems to have something to say concerning that. She put up her hand twice.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Hi.
So I'm listening.
Oh, your connection is. Oops. Your connection isn't clear, Doc. Oops.
Yes, all right. Well, we could go back to
go back to the
question
second
when
question.
she comes back.
Yeah, go back to the second.
Okay, so this was the concern about the competency of the first responders, faculty and administrators in identifying and engaging students requiring psychological support, and the balancing act, students seek to escape social media by attempting to focus on their studies, but educational institutions are being asked to prioritize mental health. How do we do this when students wish to disconnect from the realities and hardships? And 3, should we really probe psychological needs if you can't really provide support?
Okay, all right. And I'm gonna reinterpret, I think, in terms of so I am thinking that asking someone if they're okay, I think that you're gonna see if somebody's not okay, especially if you've been around them, so as the lecturer, as a colleague, as a peer, you're gonna see that their behavior is different from how they normally are. And so as a concerned human being, you can say, you don't look yourself, is everything okay? They might say yes, no. And you can say, maybe it's going to be important to have somebody who has the training to kind of talk to. And so to me, I agree that you don't attempt to do something for which you're not trained. I think, though, that you're going to see it if somebody's not okay. Communication, the research on communication tells us that only 7% of what people understand is coming from the words. 55% is the nonverbal, which is what you're reading. And then the 37% is the tone. So know that you're going to know even without them telling you. And if you're concerned, you can say, you're looking different. You know, you can make the observation. The person also had another question about, what was it?
Well, he was asking also about the competence of people to say that you're not looking yourself and all of that.
Listen, this is part of our socialization. You know, somebody comes in and their face looks sad. You say, you don't look yourself. You're all right. I mean, that's not, that's what we do. That's what we do. So that's kind of what I'm suggesting. I'm not suggesting that you need to tell the person, come sit on my couch and
yeah, all right.
So go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, we passed this way before. We spoke about it a little while ago. The response, all right, the situation is saying that the university, some organizations are rushing people back before it seems, even just in basic human kindness, that it would be the right thing to do.
Right.
And this Mr. Dowd has brought this up again, the balancing act. Students want to opt out, and we're saying to them, look, the exams are a month away. We're saying to people, you're not getting a Christmas this year. We're saying all these things without actually saying it to people. So how do we do this? He's saying, how do we do this when students wish to disconnect from realities and hardships, and we are trying to bring them back?
And I think part of the lack of support that students are feeling is that nobody asked, how are you doing? A decision was made external to them, and now they have to stay in line. And so I think that the reaction that I'm hearing is about that. When was it that students were asked, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How have you been impacted by this? Instead, what was done is, come in. Yes. We're going to start. And I think that the reaction is more about that. About just not being considered, about, you're making this decision after this huge catastrophe. And some people, they're not in a position to even, I don't know about the students who are in the western part of the island. And so to me, I think that that's some of what's going on. The idea about coping, I think that when something like this happens, we will never feel as if we're ready to continue. So I also want people to understand that response is also a natural response. I feel like I am not ready. And so to me, if empathy on the part of the administration was non-existent in this, it seems to me, I don't know if students were part of the decision to start back. I don't know. But I think that students, the reaction to me is suggesting that students are experiencing it as you didn't
imposed on them.
You didn't even ask me how I was doing, how I was feeling. And you've now made a decision.
All right. Dr. Olympia is back. Sophie's there. But O'Neill Dowd, the person who had asked the initial question, he said, quite interesting response assessing the nonverbal cues. Most classes are moving to online. So really, a lot of students will be left behind. We certainly will not be able to identify those who are struggling. That's what he said to close off his comment.
And he is right that especially if the students, all their cameras are blacked out and there is no way to see anything. And you're absolutely right. So to me, it is a difficult situation. It truly is. And I think that this requires just people, peers, colleagues, just checking in on people if you can. You know, you good? You know, how was today? We have to operate from the heart and not the head. You know, and he's right that this is not gonna be tidy and pretty, you know, and where you see the ball dropping on some things, it might mean that, you know, you can step up and step in and be that little bridge that helps to just hold somebody until they're strong enough, you know. But it means you got to check in. So if the thing goes online, if the teaching goes online, it means phone calls. It means just checking in, just touching base, and listening for the tone. You're gonna hear stuff in the tone, and this is when you're gonna have to trust your gut, because it's never wrong. So that 37%, you're gonna hear it in the tone. So something is gonna sound off. Okay. But yeah, this is hard, guys. And so what it means is just pouring into self even more, pouring into the people who love you. You know, make sure that you're addressing those human needs, you know, love and connection, creating as much certainty as you can with the things that are within your control. It's about doing those things to increase your sense of inner peace, and anything that brings joy, just doing it. And it could be looking at a plant. It could be if you have pets, if you have dogs in particular, go love upon your dog. I now have 4. So to me, it's just doing the things that make you feel good. Dr. Olympia, she gone again.
I'm here.
Okay,
I'm here.
go ahead, Dr. Olympia.
Good evening, everyone. So I am calling in from St. Lucia, and we here in St. Lucia are in solidarity with Jamaica. I mean, we are familiar, of course, not with the extent, but all of us in the Caribbean are really in one accord, just being able to experience this. And as you mentioned, Dr. Johnson,
Oh, he got dropped again.
feeling the sadness around as we experience this in one way or the other. What I wanted to also add is the normalizing of students who are feeling like this is a time to drop out of the courses. This is really a natural response to trauma. And bearing in mind, this is just a few days ago.
Right.
And so this is the natural response when the body goes down into that shutdown mode and is trying to understand and figure out what is needed to do. And so for students not to put that pressure on themselves, and even, I mean, I know there's a curriculum to follow and things have to go on, but to try to alleviate that pressure as much as possible, and for students to recognize that this is how, that's the effects or response rather of how we react to trauma, not only cognitively, but also physiologically. You know, and the other thing I heard was the effects of compounded grief. So to reiterate the importance of really being able to process through, because with what has happened with Melissa, that can also trigger matters from COVID, matters way before COVID. And it brings up the importance of being able to attend to you and process the impacts of that. Because unfortunately, life continues. And if one is holding all of these unresolved traumatic experiences, whether they are at a chronic level or an acute level, if something were to happen again, maybe not so catastrophic, but some distress, this too is going to have an effect on us. So, you know, within the Caribbean, we always, you know, have this notion that, you know, I'm strong, this other person has had it harder than me, and so forth. And we neglect to look at how this is affecting us and having to be able to process that out. So with these situations, how we are able to reflect to see, as Doctor has been saying, how well am I doing and how do I need to filter that out from my body, from my mind. And I'm hoping, well, I'm thinking that the students would have access to be able to reach out to the clinicians on board to be able to really process, you know, whatever they are holding on to that would have been triggered from that experience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Doc.
Sophie?
Oh, okay, I'm here. Thank you for the discussion and thanks, Dr. Olympia, for that contribution as well. I was really kind of zooming in on the whole question of, you know, the resilience and the expectations of the students to, you know, jump back into school. And I was thinking about that too around the mandate, if you may, or, you know, of university to do that and the response of, you know, insensitivity to all that's going on. And I was having this discussion with the class yesterday about the complex nature of leadership. Um, you know, striking the balance between people and productivity, striking the balance between focusing on, you know, mental health and getting the business at hand going. And so it's very difficult, but I was also encouraging them to see that decision as more strategic in its orientation. And behind that kind of strategic decision of getting back in right after this crisis, there are a number of benefits, of course, for getting back in. For one, um, you know, developing a sense of routine or restoring a sense of a routine and control over our lives. Um, Another benefit sometimes is just the distraction from, you know, thinking about it and going into that deep hole that we're talking about, where we get to the point where, like, you know, I just want to drop out. So, shifting our energies back to the business at hand, in a way, kind of reaffirming what we're about, reaffirming our purpose and our agency. All of those are important strategic and psychological reasons, I would say, for getting back into the business, for us starting school and getting it going. But it's very hard because I would say, again, of the guilt. Like, what happened to those who can't? That is the big question. How should I move on when my colleagues, when half of the island is not, where we are? Then what happens to them? So, it's a very complex situation, a very complex decision. And another thing I encourage them to do, is to kind of separate that kind of strategic decision from the more practical things that are happening. So, for example, this session is a way of showing empathy. So we are also representations of the university. So the university is not just the principal and the executives who've made this decision, but what are the programs? What are your lecturers? What are your colleagues doing? So it's all of us who are in this together, who are trying to make sense of this situation and are holding each other's hand in support and establishing a sense of connectedness. So, I don't know if that helps, in terms of this kind of tension around why we asked to come back so early, and this is unfair, and this is insensitive, and there's no sense of empathy. There is empathy, but perhaps not being shown at the strategic level. But as I said, this session is one such way of extending ourselves and reaching out.
Thanks, Sophie.
Yeah.
That contribution, Sophie, made me think about this in terms of, something practical that the students can do and initiate and for themselves. I can't overemphasize the importance of just sharing, just talking, and it could be virtual, it could be in person, but the connection of student and going through this as student and being able to share amongst each other as students, not just getting it out of your head is an absolutely great way of looking at it from a distance, hearing other people's perspectives, not having to carry all of it by yourself. So to me, having a student group that, one hour for the week or something, you just kind of get together and you vent and you create the safe space for yourselves where you can just talk whatever it is you need to talk and criticize whoever it is you need to criticize. Because to me, that's also a way of the processing of it. The process is you allow everything that is there to be said, and having put it out there, then your mind can look at it, from a different perspective.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Shade's comment was, the way we teach and the way we are expected to learn must evolve. Given the emotional and psychological challenges of recent years, our academic institutions should now consider introducing foundational courses that help students and educators better understand mental health and emotional awareness.
I agree. I agree. And I think the undergrad, the psychology bachelors, there's a push for a course, a different type of course that is about, understanding and managing self so that one can better navigate relationships. You know, so it's more a practical skills kind of course.
Yeah. Than theory. Any other questions?
So guys, I know that this feels hard, and it is hard. When I reflect back on COVID, it was just mind-blowing. It's like, how are we gonna get through this? And we did. And doesn't mean that we come out, you know, without bruises and bumps. What I know though is that how we get to understand our strength is through the challenges that are placed in front of us, and us just one step in front of the other, and the next step and the next step. It's not, you know, it's not knowing how this is supposed to go. It's just doing what is the next step, you know. And so to me, in the context of trauma and overwhelm, the way to get through it is to make it one step and then the next. It's the same way that you get through grief. It's the next hour, you know, and it's the next hour, and so to me, it's a similar strategy for something like this, and understanding that, you know, life is gonna go on, and the days are gonna be filled with challenges, and how you get through them is 1 minute to the next, to the next. And before you know it, a week has passed. And then you just, they say, rinse and repeat. You know, it's, what's my next step? What's my next step? And remember that part of, I saw something from the university that there are some modifications in terms of assignments and when things are due and all of this other stuff. Just make sure that you get the information on that, you know, so that you can make decisions and choices that will be in your best interest.
As you say, being informed helps to give you a sense of control over what
yes,
is happening.
That certainty, you need to bring back some certainty into your daily life and your functioning, because this hurricane just blew that away. And so part of the coping is, you know, what can I do to increase my sense of certainty? Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions, guys? Last chance.
Questions? Well, if there are no other questions, thank you guys for listening. I wish you all the best for your exams. And, you know, remember that there are lots of things that you know that you think you don't know. So as best as you can, try to keep the stress down so that what you have inside of you can come out in terms of the knowledge and the skills that are going to be assessed.
And you know, I think Doc is making a really great point there. At this level, you're expected to bring what you know. It's not just regurgitating what is in an article or in a textbook. So if you can process this in terms of what has been going on with you, it will make your essays all the richer, or your tasks that you're asked to do all the richer. You know, it's that part of your thing, you know, but Thanks, Doc. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sharing your wisdom and your compassion with us. And you know, I'm taking away a lot. I made a ton of notes. I hope that other people did as well, you know. And one of the things I think is that even in what we're doing here, some people are beginning to name their feelings, name their emotions. That will help to reestablish a sense of control, because it's like the boogeyman. If you turn around, or a shadow, you turn around and confront it, it makes it less frightening. So I think even just in being able to, you know, you asking, what do you feel? That began the healing process for a lot of people here this evening. And so I'm very grateful to you for that. And I would urge them to go and do that for their co-workers who come in and with issues, and their family members, and the people who are looking at them as being trained in the art of helping people, the art and science of helping people, that they now have this additional set of skills. So, you know, give thanks for that. And well, I wish everybody a good evening, and we'll see you. Well, some people still have class tomorrow, and we'll see the rest of you next week.
And I hope you can go do something really, really special and sweet for yourself.
Yes.
You spent almost 3 hours here. You deserve a treat. All righty. Have a good evening.